every argument you could not walk away from, every insult that yanked words from your throat before you could stop them. Every moment you felt that hot surge in your chest and opened your mouth, thinking you were defending yourself, when in truth you were hemorrhaging control onto the floor for everyone to see. You handed them everything: your composure, your dignity, your silence, which was the only weapon that ever mattered. And when the dust settled, when the argument ended and you were alone with the echo of your own voice still ringing, you felt it. That sick, hollow weight in your stomach. The regret, the shame, the knowledge that you lost something you cannot name but can feel missing. Like a phantom limb, you reacted, you explained, you chased closure that will never come. And they watched you do it, they watched you bleed. And this is the wound most men carry and never examine. They tell themselves they were right. They tell themselves the other person deserved it. But in the silent hours, in the darkness before sleep, they replay the confrontation and hate what they see. A man who could not hold his tongue. A man who let another human being reach into his chest and pull the strings. A man who spoke when silence would have crushed his enemy without effort. Tonight, you master the ruthless art of never responding to provocation. You learn to let silence weaponize their emotions against them, to become the void they cannot escape. Once you grasp this, no argument, no conflict, no calculated insult will ever extract another drop from you again. Niccolò Machiavelli spent years observing the courts of Renaissance Italy, watching princes rise and fall, studying the mechanics of power with the cold precision of a surgeon examining a corpse. He watched men with armies lose everything to men with patience. He watched loud, aggressive rulers crumble while quiet, calculating one's accumulated kingdoms. And in his observations, a pattern emerged so consistent it might as well be natural law. The prince who speaks least rules longest. In The Prince, Machiavelli warns that a ruler must be feared, but never hated. And nothing breeds hatred faster than a man who argues, explains, defends himself against every slight. Such a man reveals his wounds. Such a man shows the court exactly where to strike next. But the prince who receives provocation with cold silence, who lets the insult hang in the air unanswered, who responds only with that terrible, patient gaze, and this prince becomes something else entirely. He becomes unknowable, and what men cannot know they fear. Sun Tzu understood this in the theater of war. In The Art of War, he wrote that all warfare is based on deception, that the supreme excellence is to subdue the enemy without fighting. What is silence in the face of provocation if not the ultimate deception? Your enemy expects reaction. He has calculated his words to wound, to extract, to control. When you give him nothing, you have deceived him at the deepest level. You have made him fight a battle that does not exist, swing at shadows, exhaust himself against a void that swallows his every effort. Most men today erupt like fools in conflict. They mistake volume for strength. They believe that the loudest voice wins, that the last word matters, that explaining themselves thoroughly enough will somehow force understanding into the skull of someone who never wanted to understand in the first place. These men leak power with every syllable. They hand over control with every defense. You will not be that man, not after tonight. Silence is your throne, and you will learn to sit upon it with the cold patience of a king who has watched 1,000 pretenders destroy themselves against his stillness. Observe what unfolds in their mind when you withhold words in the heat of conflict. They have launched their provocation. They have calculated the insult, chosen the words, anticipated your response. Their nervous system is primed for the exchange. Adrenaline floods their bloodstream. Neural pathways fire in preparation for the verbal combat they expect. The back and forth they have rehearsed. Every fiber of their psychological architecture is oriented toward the reaction they know is coming. And then, nothing. You do not speak, you do not flinch. You do not perform the role they have assigned you. Watch what happens now, because this is where their destruction begins. First comes confusion. The brain cannot process the absence of expected stimulus. They have thrown a punch into empty air, and the lack of contact destabilizes their entire framework. They may repeat themselves. They may escalate. They are trying to provoke the reaction their system requires to complete the circuit. But you remain silent, cold, immovable as stone. Now comes doubt. In the absence of your response, they have nothing to push against, nothing to interpret, nothing to analyze. The human mind abhors a vacuum, and so it begins to fill your silence with meaning. What are you thinking? Why are you not reacting? Do you know something they do not? Have they miscalculated? Have they exposed themselves? The questions multiply in the darkness of your wordlessness. Then comes the spiral. Without your participation, they have no external target. The aggression they summoned has nowhere to go but inward. They begin to replay their own words. They hear themselves differently now, without the distraction of your response. They notice how desperate they sounded, how emotional, how obvious. The silence you have given them becomes a mirror, and they cannot bear what they see. This is where obsession takes root. They will think about your non-response for days, weeks. They will draft messages they never send, responses they imagine you giving, entire conversations that exist only in their skull. They will lie awake wondering what you meant by saying nothing. They will tell others about the exchange, seeking validation, trying to assign meaning to the void. And here is the terrible truth they will never escape. Your silence was the meaning. Your refusal to engage was the message. Your absence of words spoke louder than any argument ever could. You have become the silence that echoes in their skull. Inescapable. Permanent. You have taken up residence in their mind without paying rent, without effort, without speaking a single word. This is the power you have been giving away your entire life. This is what you reclaim tonight. 5 ways to wield silence as a blade in conflict. 1. Do not respond to provocation within the first breath. When someone attacks, the untrained man fires back immediately. This is instinct. This is weakness. This is the reaction they require to feel powerful. Instead, pause. Let 2 heartbeats pass. 3. Let the silence stretch until it becomes uncomfortable. Not for you, but for them. In ancient courts, advisors were trained to count to 10 before speaking in the presence of the king, not for the king's benefit, but because the delay demonstrated control. The man who responds instantly is the man who has been triggered. The man who waits is the man who chooses. Do not respond, delay. Let the provocation hang in the air like smoke until they choke on their own words. This is how silence asserts dominion. 2. Never explain yourself to someone who has already decided you are wrong. Explanation is defense. Defense is acknowledgement of attack. The moment you begin to justify, to clarify, to contextualize, you have accepted the frame that you owe them something. You do not. Machiavelli observed that princes who explain too much appear guilty, even when innocent. The court assumes that innocence needs no defense, that truth requires no elaboration. When you explain, you imply doubt in your own position. When you remain silent, you imply certainty so absolute that words would be beneath it. Refuse to justify. Refuse to clarify. Let your silence communicate that their opinion requires no response. This is how silence communicates supremacy. 3. Withdraw completely when they escalate. The provoker expects escalation in return. They have laddered their aggression, expecting you to climb with them. Each exchange louder and more emotional than the last. This is the trap. When they raise their voice, lower yours to nothing. When they advance, retreat into cold stillness. When they demand response, offer only the vast, empty space of your disengagement. Sun Tzu wrote that the wise general retreats when the enemy is strong and strikes when the enemy is weak. An escalating opponent is at their strongest, most defended, most prepared for battle. But after they have exhausted themselves against your silence, after they have swung wildly at nothing, they become weak, and you have not spent a single resource. Withdraw. Let them tire. Let the silence drain them. This is how silence exhausts without effort. 4. Let their words die without witness. Every provocation seeks an audience, even if that audience is only you. The provoker wants to see their words land. They want to watch your face change, your body tense, your composure crack. When you deny them this, when you receive their attack with the same expression you would give a blank wall, you have killed their words before they reach their target. Ancient kings would receive messengers bearing insults from rival kingdoms with faces of absolute stone. They understood that to react was to validate, to show that the enemy's words had weight. Your face is a fortress. Your expression is a void. Let their words enter that void and disappear without effect. This is how silence denies satisfaction. 5. Never pursue closure they have not earned. The reactive man chases resolution. He texts again to make sure they understood. He explains one more time in case they missed his point. He offers peace to someone who came seeking war. This is not nobility. This is desperation disguised as maturity. The closure you seek is a cage they are building around your dignity. Every message you send checking if things are okay. Every attempt to smooth over conflict they created. Every olive branch extended before they have knelt. This is power flowing out of you in a steady stream. Stop the bleeding. Do not reach out. Do not seek understanding. Let them wonder. Let them wait. Let the silence between you stretch into days, weeks, until they understand that access to you is a privilege they have lost. Like a Persian satrap who raged at silent defiance and destroyed his own alliances in fury, your enemies will unravel themselves against your stillness. This is how silence carves fear into their bones. You now possess 5 blades most men will never sharpen. These are not theories. These are not motivational abstractions. These are weapons forged in the cold observation of human psychology, tested across millennia of conflict, wielded by emperors and generals who understood that the mouth is the weakest point in any man's fortress. Wield them coldly. Wield them without mercy. Wield them in utter silence. You no longer react. You no longer explain. You no longer bleed in conflict. The next time someone provokes you, the next time they launch their calculated insult, their pointed question, their demand for emotional engagement, remember what you learned tonight. Remember the panic that sets in when expectations are violated. Remember the spiral of doubt and obsession that your silence will create. Remember that every word you withhold is power retained, dignity preserved, control demonstrated. This is the moment you cease being the fool who argues with every slight and become the shadow that commands through absence. This is the transformation from bleeding to sovereign, from reactive to untouchable, from loud and forgotten to silent and feared. Provocation dies unanswered. Let it die. Every time, without exception, without remorse, without a single syllable leaving your lips to prove you were affected. You are now untouchable. You are now silent. You are now sovereign. If this cut deep enough to reach bone, inscribe in the comments the words that seal this transformation. Provocation dies unanswered. Write it not as affirmation but as oath. Write it not as hope but as cold fact. Write it as the man you are becoming, and the man who no longer leaks power into conflicts that deserve nothing from him. Strike the like. It takes less than the breath you will learn to withhold. Subscribe if you intend to return. If you recognize that this channel is building something darker and more useful than anything else you will find. The notification bell ensures you never miss the next blade we sharpen together. Weak men will argue with the screen. They will feel defensive. They will comment their objections, unable to resist the very reactivity this video warned against. Powerful men will act in silence. They will absorb. They will implement. They will disappear from this video without a trace of emotional engagement and reemerge in their lives transformed. Which one are you? The answer lives in what you do next. Not what you say, not what you feel, what you do, and in silence. Go now. Practice the withholding. Feel the unfamiliar power of the words you do not speak. And understand this final truth, the one that separates men who merely hear from men who become. In the void where your words used to be, in the silence that now fills the space where reactions once leaked, empires of fear are taking shape. Unseen, unheard, unstoppable. The abyss does not speak, and neither, from this moment forward, will you.